12 episodes. That means we've been doing this for a year now. We come to you typically the first Friday of each month to talk about all things fiber. And by fiber, I mean wool, yarn, knitting, crochet, spinning, all that kind of fibery goodness, okay? So today I have quite a few things to share with y'all, and we're going to first kick it off with checking to make sure that technology is right. So if you can see me and hear me, let me know in the chat box where you are tuning in from and maybe what you're working on, because I know a lot of times y'all tune in live and you'll be, working on a sewing project or a knitting or crochet project. So let us know that in the chat box below. Let me check if my chat is working. Hi, Emmy, tuning in from Australia. It is tomorrow morning for you, so that is awesome that you've tuned in. Linda from Kansas is in the house. Hi, Kristen from hot and humid Indiana. And I'm coming to y'all from my home crafting studio. I need to stop saying sewing studio because all my stuff is crammed into this one room where it has been raining every single day. So it is also hot and humid here in North Central Florida. Okay. Oh, awesome, Heather, you made it. She said she was going to try and make it after work today. So that's awesome that you've tuned in. Okay, great. Clovis says she can hear me and she is crocheting. Awesome. I love to hear it. All right, so first we are going to kick this off by talking a little bit about the latest knit along. So last month I talked about opening up the registration and the sign up page. Today in our September episode of Fiber Friday, we are kicking off my new Constanza Shawl knit along. And I guess I should say Constanza in English, huh? People are not going to know how to say it in Spanish, but it's a Spanish word of a place in Dominican Republic where my family is from, but Constanza, is that how you would say it? Anyways, let's go ahead and give them the over-the-shoulder shot so they can see a couple samples of the shawl that we're going to be knitting. First, I will start off by saying it is beginner friendly. I remember when I started knitting, I would see all these fancy shawls and I'd be like, one, what am I going to wear that with? Like for what? And two, it's lacy. I see larger openings in it. There's no way I could do that. But this one is absolutely beginner friendly. And for those of you that may be more advanced or seasoned knitters, you're going to see that basically you can turn the pattern into somewhat of a formula and you'll be able to add more of the lace repeats to it. And if you want to see some samples of the Constanza shawls that some of my test knitters have created, when you go to the sign up page, if you want to sign up for the knit along, it is below. We'll put it in the chat box here on Facebook and on YouTube, and it's always going to be in the link below this video on YouTube, okay? The link is there. When you go to the product page, like the sign up page for the knit along, you'll see in the gallery several other images, okay? If you are on our Fiber email list, I also sent an email earlier today telling y'all to tune in for tonight's episode of Fiber Friday, and I did go ahead and include several pictures there of some of the different test knits that my test knitters made using the pattern, okay? So it looks simple, but you can also kind of add more lace to it and make it a little bit bigger, dressier, kind of more fancier also. So here are two that I made. You can see that it is garter stitch, which if you are a knitter, you know that that is like what we would call potato chip knitting. It's just like knit, 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 back and forth, back and forth. So you're not purling along a long width of anything in here, okay? It's all knit, 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 and then we'll do some lace repeats in here to add, the lace, the open sections here. This one hasn't been blocked in quite a while, but you can see that if I open them up, if you were to wet block this and put the pins in where you can really stretch out the lace, you can really make that pop, okay? So we actually start off with only a couple of stitches down here. So I'll give you a quick overview of how it's knit up. We start here, and then we start going all the way. Building, 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 building on this, okay? So we're increasing in the middle here, and then we have the lace portions, but all of the rest of this is all knit until, when you follow the pattern directions, it'll tell you at a certain point to then start, if you want to, inserting your lace repeats there. Now the knit along, here's what it includes. It's $30 and it's an online video course with a live question and answer session with me where you will submit your questions on the video lessons in case you're having any trouble with anything or you need further clarification. That's where you'll submit your questions, and then I prepare for a live Q&A session that you can tune in live, or if you can't make it live, it's always recorded and just embedded right there in the course. Okay, so that you can watch it after the fact and see what the answers to the questions were. Now, here is another sample. Another live element to my knit along is a live Zoom social hour chat where you'll get to show off your shawl. Okay, it's towards the end of the month, and you'll be able to share, you know, what yarn you use, tell us if you hacked it in any way, if you made some changes, how many lace repeats you included, what the breakdown was, and that way you'll be able to share with the other knitters that are in the knit along as well. So we have two live components. One is a question and answer session. The other one is a live Zoom social hour chat, okay? And then you're gonna get all the video lessons that never expire step by step on how to make the shawl and the PDF instructions, okay? We also went ahead and included a one-page calendar that you can print out, and that way you have the dates of when there's gonna be 2 batches of videos that will be posted. The first videos don't go up until next Friday, so you basically have a week to gather your supplies. The supply list is already listed in the course for you, and I'm gonna put up one batch of videos on the 9th, which is next Friday, another batch of videos on that following Wednesday, and then we'll have our live elements, the Q&A and the Zoom social hour at the end of the month. Okay, to conclude. So again, if that's something that you're interested in, the link is in the chat box. This is for my Constanza Shawl knit along, okay? Video course with video lessons. Now, I wanted to pull out some yarns from my stash to kind of go over for those of you that are looking for yarns and stuff to pick to make this. It's really quite simple, actually. I'm going to actually put the supplies that you would need to make this shawl out here so you can see how simple it's going to be. You're going to need, and it's all of course listed in the pattern for you, at least 400 yards or so, 450 yards of a fingering weight yarn. It could be a CYC classified 1 or 2. So I would say like a sock weight yarn, a fingering weight yarn, or even a sport weight yarn would work great. Okay, you're going to need 1 stitch marker. That's it. And I recommend getting a stitch marker that's like these type, like a little ring. Let me see if you can see this. So like a little ring stitch marker instead of the locking stitch markers that open. This is going to be a little bit too clunky for us to be using in this knit along, okay? So you want a ring one, and of course make sure that it is large enough to fit over the shaft of whatever size needle you're going to be using. Now the pattern recommends a US size 7 needle. Okay, so that's all you will need. Your yarn, the needles, which are not these. I'm going to show you why I have this out in a minute. But it's a US size 7, at least 36 inches long in the cord. So unless you have fixed needles that have a cord that long already, you may want to, I mean, if you're going to be doing more knitting and stuff, may want to invest in an interchangeable set. And so that's what I wanted to share with y'all here. Where did I put mine? Here it is. My favorites are the Chagu needles. These guys. It comes in a set like this with all the sizes from US size 2, which is 2.75 millimeters, all the way up to US 15. They sell them where you just get like the half, like the smaller sizes or the bigger sizes or the full kit. I'm not sure which ones we still have in inventory, but we do sell the interchangeables in different sets. So as long as you have a set that has US size 7, okay, that's what you'll want to use. Now, if I'm going to use a US size 7 for, say, a sock weight or fingering weight yarn for this shawl, if you're going to use a sport weight, you basically, for the yarn that you want to use for your shawl, you want to use a needle size that's a little bit bigger. So than what is recommended for that yarn, if that makes sense. So say you want to use a yarn and the label says use a US size 5 needle for it. You want to use probably a 6 or a 7 on it, okay? If it says a size 6, go up a little bit more because the shawl is designed to be drapier and more open, meaning we need to be using a larger needle than what the yarn calls for because you're not really wanting to make a super tight and dense fabric, right? We want this to be drapey when we're wearing it. So US size 7 needles and at least 400 to 450 yards of fingering weight or sport weight yarn. And 1 stitch marker. And then of course, you know, your tapestry needle so that you can weave in your ends once you're done. And then some scissors to cut your yarn with. So real simple. Mary Grace is popping in with a question. She's asking, what size and length circular needles did I use? I use US size 7 and I use a 40-inch circular, okay? So the pattern calls for 36 because you can get away with 36. I usually like to have it longer. So here's what I wanted to show you with the needles. Circular needles, and I know a lot of times people, maybe you have knit for years and years and you're just not used to using circular needles, so you're thinking, oh, I probably can't work that project because I don't know how to use those needles. It's super easy and it's way better for something with that large of a distance once we get to the end of the shawl, okay? This is what we would call fixed circular needles, meaning that the cable on the needle tip is stuck on there. This cannot separate. If you do, you will break it, okay? That's called fixed circular needles. And of course, they come in plastic, wood, bamboo, all types of stuff, and metal. This is a Chiagu needle in a fixed size. This would be a 16-inch to work smaller circumferences. I use these to make hats, okay? So 16-inch like that is fine. So for hats, I'm saying. Now for this shawl, this is what I would do if you had an interchangeable set. I would pull out my US size 7 needle tips. Then you get multiple size cords that you can connect the needle tips to, okay? So, and these I love because they actually say the measurement here. These are, this says 22. And in this batch, that's all I have right now. So basically, if this cord is 22, okay, then you're gonna add the length of the tips because each tip is gonna go on each end of it. So I think these are my 5-inch tips. They are. So 5 and 5 is going to give me 10 plus the 22 is going to give me 32 inches. So I need to pull out one of my bigger cords from my stash, but just so that you can see. Did you see how easy that was? I literally just screw it onto the end. The interchangeable tips have a little screw, have the threads on one side. So you screw it in and then it comes with a little tool. It's just like a little T-pin. There's a hole right here. You insert it in there. Hold that end and then give it a good twist. Because otherwise, if it's not really snugly attached there, guess what happens? They unscrew while you're knitting and you get drop stitches and your stitches will start going bloop, 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 bloop. Ask me how I know. Okay, so there's one, and then I take the other US size 7 tip and I would put it on the other end. So you just need to make sure that once you do this, your length is at least 36 inches. If not, I would recommend 40. If you have a big stash of different cord lengths, or you have a huge stash of fixed circulars, like this, okay? So you want one from tip to tip that measures 36 or 40, or it can even be more. It's just gonna start getting in your way. You know, if you have a 60-inch cord, there's gonna be a lot of cord in your way as you're knitting, okay? But this is gonna help hold all the stitches once you start growing, 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 and making the shawl bigger and bigger. But that is what, how you would attach the cords to an interchangeable set. Okay, and here's one tip too. So what sometimes I will do is if I can't find the cord that I need, I will cast on with this and start my project. Once it gets to a point where I'm like, okay, these stitches are way too crammed on this shorter cord, then by then hopefully I have found my other cord. I will take off one of these tips, screw it to the end of the longer cord, and when I finish one round, like one row, I will grab that new one and start knitting onto it like that so that in one pass you get all those stitches onto the cord, put a stopper on the other end, and then once you're done with one pass, take off the other tip and put it on there. If you're not a knitter, that probably doesn't make sense, but you can work around it, okay? So again, US size 7 or 8, you know, like whatever is a size slightly bigger than what is recommended for the yarn that you're using. Now, let me talk a little bit about the yarn. I'm gonna scoot this stuff out of the way. I went ahead and pulled some different hanks that I had in my stash to go over a couple things. These ones here don't have a label because I dyed them. And they were the same colorway. I think they're kind of cute. This one has like a little bit more green popped up on that one of that teal color. But anyways, those I dyed myself. I may even do a giveaway on one of these. But I think I'm going to start my shawl with one of this. This color shows up really good on camera when I'm trying to teach. So I may do some videos with this color. Okay. Let me pop in and make sure I'm not missing any questions. Okay, great. Grace is asking, could you add one cord to another to make it longer? No. So the connections on the ends of the cords only fit the screws that are on the end of the needle tip. And I'm actually glad that you asked that because this gives me an opportunity to mention something else. Some cords are small, they have an S on them, and some cords are large. So the larger size needles, like the US 9 through 15, I think, something like that, the connection is bigger. So you can't take one of the thicker cords and put like a smaller size needle on it. So there's two sizes that you need to have them for, you know, because the bigger the needle is, the bigger the end with the threads on them. So it needs to go with the corresponding cord, okay? But no, you can't connect the cords to each other. You got to have like the cords at that length, okay? Yes, Rebel Rose says, I love Chiagu needles. So do I. Now, keep in mind, you might hear a lot of people say, I love Chiagu, I love them. These are metal needles. If you are a beginner, I do not recommend that you use these. A lot of us like these because once you get into the groove, you're kind of going super duper fast and you can just fly right through it because the needles are so slick, the stitches just fly off them, which is not really what you want when you're just starting off, and you want to make sure that you're like inserting the needle in the right area, right? And you don't want the stitches to just be flying off your needle. So be careful with that. You may want to start off with something that has a little bit more grab, like some birch or bamboo needles instead. Okay. Oh, Kathleen says you can add on, there are adapters. Oh, I've never seen those. That's good to know. Oh, Kathleen says, I just got the set. I should clarify that you can attach cords of the same size with the included adapters. Attach cords of the same size. So the only thing that came in mind was the little stops that go on the end. So like when you're changing out the needle tips to another project, and I don't have it in this set. I have a bunch of sets over there. But, oh, okay. Some of you are saying that you could buy adapters to join the cord. So it must be like a little screw end with the threads on them. Mine didn't come with that. I would love to see that. But yeah, so there. Those of you that have some of those adapters are saying, yeah, that you can join the cords. Okay, cool. All right, so talking about the yarn, I went ahead and pulled some of these. These two I was saying that I dyed. This is a sock weight yarn, 75% superwash merino wool, 25% nylon. This is the same yarn that I have used, well, not exactly, but it's still 75-25. This yarn is the same as this. This yarn is a Blue-Faced Leicester yarn, and it's a little bit springier, I have found. So be careful, because if you use a yarn that's super duper springy, you may want the shawl to be nice, wide, and open, like after you we block it and everything. And you can see like this one bounces back. So if you have a really, really springy yarn that just has a lot of that bounce back return on it, it may end up being just a little bit smaller because it kind of, cinches up on itself because of the nylon content. So be careful with that. But this would be very similar to what I have used. Easy. Now this one, this is Nitpick Stroll gradient. It's like a pastel gradient, so it just fades out. So it goes from one color to the other, but it has a long distance. It's not like a self-striping like this, where like whatever the distance is that the designer decided to dye it in, after that distance, it's going to change to a different color. This is a little bit more ombre-ish as it changes, okay? Like more blended in. And again, it's a 75% superwash merino wool, 25% nylon. And this little bundle here has 458 yards. Okay, so it's 100 grams in fingering weight yarn, and this would be enough to make the shawl. Just one little ball like this, okay? So I'm just trying to show y'all some different options in case you have this stuff already in your stash and you want to join the knit along. Now this self-striping yarn, I think we still have a few left. This is more for sock yarn because of how it stripes. Like once you have the finished sock, you see it in like the individual sections of how the designer dyed the yarn in order to be like that. On a shawl like this, I would be curious to see exactly how it would look. I think it's going to look kind of blotchy because it depends on what the length is, right, for each section of a specific color. Plus, as you increase, I think those shifts are going to change. So it's kind of hard to anticipate unless you've done something like that. I have not, but I would not start off this project with this. My preferred yarn is going to be something either mottled or speckled or solid, okay? So here I have something else, and I'll go ahead and mention this. I am waiting on an order from Madeline Tosh. We are getting some of these hand-dyed yarns by them. The Tosh Merino Light. This has no nylon in it. It's just 100% merino wool. And you can see this cool speckled yarn. It has all kinds of colors in here, okay? And we are getting a batch. So we're going to be selling them as like mystery bundles because they're not a specific colorway. And it's actually, I was hoping it would get here today, but the order is going to arrive tomorrow. So if you've joined already the knit along, be on the lookout for an email from me later this weekend so that we can let you know, hey, the yarn is in play, like we've added it to the inventory, it's in the shop, and I think we only ordered 30 hanks. So obviously you would just need the one to make one shawl, and they're going to be mysteries. So I can't wait to get the box, first of all, to open it and see. And I will see about taking a picture of everything that we got. And we'll try to, if you wanted blues or jewel tones or something, we'll try and match that up when we ship it out. But it's going to be like a mystery yarn hank, okay? This other one here that I got, This is from Lola Bean Yarn Company, and this is a superwash merino cashmere nylon, okay? So a little bit fancier, and it's 75, 15, 10. So 75% superwash merino wool, 15% cashmere, and 10% nylon. And this is sport weight, but it feels so good, luxurious. So for me, if I wanted kind of a solid-ish shawl, I would use something like this that's like a tonal. Oh, that looks so, so pretty. But, I mean, it could also be like a plain solid. If you're wanting to be like an everyday shawl that you're going to wear all throughout the fall or something, you could just go with a plain solid too. But again, all of these, this has 400 yards. This would probably still be enough. Just be careful that you don't go too big on the needle size, because if it's too drapey, you may run out of yarn before you want to. But the way that we knit it, you can stop whenever you feel like, okay, that's it, I'm kind of running out of yarn. Finish that row, and then you can bind off, okay? Okay, so that was just a little bit about the yarn. So I said fingering weight or sport weight, okay? At least 450 yards, okay? All right, next thing I have on my list here, I talked about that, and that. Okay, let's go over a couple of my current projects. Let's start with this one first because I haven't done much. If you recall, I had bought this bamboo pop sock yarn at a shop in Arkansas last month when we were on vacation. And I think I had the sock to here maybe? I can't remember what I showed y'all last time. But anyways, it's almost a sock. I will admit I haven't worked on this because I lost the project bag that it was in for a little while. And I didn't know where it was. But I'm here now, and I'm starting on the toe decreases. So this one will be finished in no time if I can get to it. So that's the first sock of that project. And then this other one that I've mentioned before, they're thicker, bigger socks because we're going to do a knit along on this project. I'm kind of testing out the pattern before I send it to testers. And this is the worsted weight sock. So it whips up super fast. They look like mittens, don't they? Oh my goodness. Excuse me. These would make super cute mittens. And I think this yarn was from my friend Alex Creates that I bought a while ago. So anyway, here is the first sock. And I had shown y'all that. I wear women's size 11. I know. They're big socks. But they're also thick and cozy. They fit perfectly. Okay? And then the other one I had started this week. And I think I went from here to here in just plain stockinette, just watching a couple nights of The Last Kingdom on Netflix, if anybody watches that show. Okay, so now I'm here to the point, I think I already started the decreases. Yeah, I've done a couple of decreases here for the toe. So this is going to be knit like this. We start at the top, cuff down, and then we're going to come in and do an afterthought heel. Okay, so that's how I think I'm going to teach it, because I just feel like it's an easier way to break it down, especially for first-time sock knitters. And if you're wanting to make real socks where you're using the super thin yarn and the small needles, this is going to be a great gateway to get there, okay? So, anyways, this is going to be for a future knit along, but just so you can see. Cute. Funky, cozy socks. I would not wear these with shoes, but for in the house on a chilly night. All right, so that, let me grab my stuff. So that was that. Next up, I wanted to share with you all a book that I bought. I don't like reading, but I love resource books. Instruction manuals are my friend, recipe books, cookbooks, and then all the resource books for ideas and inspiration for my crafts. So I have mentioned this on Fiber Fridays before, I'm pretty sure. Ollies. If you don't have an Ollie's in your area, I'm sorry for you. But if you do have Ollie's, and it's OLLIE', they sell like closeout inventory, similar to like a Tuesday morning, I feel like. They have an entire book section, and it's like categorized. When you go into the craft section, every craft. I even got a brush lettering book, card making, quilting, sewing, knitting, whatever. This one, let me show you this. Geometric Knitting Patterns. It says a source book of classic to contemporary designs by Tina Barrett, includes charts for 750 decorative motifs. So this for me is going to be a resource guide in terms of kind of like what they would call a stitch dictionary or stitch Bible, where you get ideas and then incorporate them into designs. I think that's going to be the way that I will use this book. But yes, $3.99 was the cost of this book. There's all kinds of geometric knitting patterns in here, stripes, chevrons, checks and plaids, all kinds of stuff. And so the charts are in here, like the design, breaking it down for you, okay? And it's telling you all the repeats, all the stuff to get all these different wild animals. Are you serious? Cows. So cute. So lots of ideas in here. There's even some projects. I saw some like beaded tote bag in here or something. There it is. This reminds me of my friend Laura Nelkin, who does a lot of knitting with beads. But it says it's a beaded Fair Isle bag. Cute. So yeah, for $3.99, you know I had to grab it to add it. But again, it's just called Geometric Knitting Patterns, if that's something that you're interested in. You can see how they've incorporated in different actual patterns. Like here, looks like a little, kind of like a roughly textured a stitch pattern here at the top and the cuff of the sock. Looks super cute. All right, so that is the latest book that I have added to my collection. And then I think the last thing I have to talk about is some wool and spinning stuff. I'm going to do like a quarter demo, okay? Because I don't have the full thing here locked in, and it's going to be a little bit tricky to hold it in place. Audrey says, I need mittens more than socks. Okay. I mean, those could be mittens. They totally could be mittens, because if you wanted that rounded tip, you know, you could you do the same decreases just like a toe. Kind of cool. Okay. But you know me. I'm never going to make mittens, Audrey. Sorry. I can't test it for you because in Florida, no. Never ever. Okay. So here's what I wanted to share with y'all. I have shared this before, that my friend Vicky owns a mill. She calls it a mini mill. Vicky's Wool and More is her business name. And she processed our wool from our sheep, okay? We have two sheep named Mary Kate and Ashley. They're twins. And this is the wool that I still have left, of course. She had dyed some for me from each one. She's so cute because she labeled them. This is like Ashley's. This is Mary Kate's wool, dyed in these blues and purples. Okay, so anyways, I have finally been playing around more with my homegrown wool. And I wanted to show you what I did so far. Okay, so let's start here so you can see this first. So I went ahead and made this bat. This is called a bat, a fiber bat, a wool bat. So then I pull from here, and this is the way that I do it. Some people just put this whole thing on their lap and they just spin the yarn up from here. I like to just go in and separate little strips. And of course, it's going to depend on how you're spinning it, and you know what the colors are and how you want to keep the colors in the finished yarn and all that fancy stuff that I don't really care about, because I just want to see it turn into yarn with these colors. Okay, so I go like this, and then from this bit I will spin. So let me show you. Dun dun dun. My electric eel wheel 6.0 that I bought from Vicky's online shop. This is made by Dreaming Robots, and it is a little electric wheel. It's not really a wheel because there's not a whole wheel in a treadle, but I've shown this before in previous episodes of Fiber Friday here, where I press this little thing, I can turn it on. It's on a battery pack. That's why I don't have it actually plugged up, because I don't need it. I love it because I can travel with it. But you can see the yarn that I have made already, the singles that I have been making from the bat, okay? But before I do that, let me just show you a little bit of the process of how I made this bat. We've talked about this before. Oh, Susie was asking about the thumb. Yeah, you'd have to work the thumb into it if you were knitting from the sock. A little math, you know, figure out where to break off for it. I've never made mittens, like I said, and I don't plan to either. This is another, look at that cute bobbin. I spun this bat up during that retreat that I went to in June for the sock knitting retreat. Okay, let me get this out of the way. And here, let's bring this. This is one of my drum carders. This is the Louette Standard drum carder. 72 TPI, which means 72 teeth per inch for here. And I think that's pretty standard. You know, there's some for like finer wools and stuff, and it's not that serious for me. So you basically, and I'm going to zoom out so y'all can see this better. And I have to have it on the edge because you see the handle needs to clear the table completely on this carder, okay? So I mixed my wool, let me reach and grab this, with some other little bundles. Like I buy these online, these little bundles of wool in different colors and stuff because I like to mix up my own stuff. So this is a dyed Corriedale in a magenta color. And it looks like I ordered this from thewoolery.com. Great. So I just rip off a chunk. You never want to cut your fiber with scissors, okay? Just pull it off. And I hope y'all can see that. Yeah. And then I spread this out. And I'll show you why I do this, because our homegrown wool from the Florida cracker sheep that we have, it's really neppy. Like, you know, sometimes you'll buy like bags of neps, of cotton neps or wool neps, and you throw them in there to create that like how you see on this one. You see how I have these little baubles of blue, like thick chunks that are in there that just pop. Those are neps. Okay. And so our yarn from our homegrown sheep is similar. Like it's just like that, at least from my sheep. The two of them have, you know, slightly different wool, even though they're twins, but still. So then I am going to feed this in here. And I'll tell you why I'm doing this. Like I was saying, our homegrown wool is kind of neppy. And so the first couple times I did it, I went ahead and started off with my wool. And a lot of it just got stuck. So I figured, hey, I'm going to sandwich it because look, you see? But it's so soft and fluffy. It's just, you know, a denser wool. It's not going to be like, oh, so soft. So all I got to do is mix it with stuff, and then I can make yarn with our homegrown wool. So this, I spread it out a little bit. I'm just going to feed it under here. And then I just hold it and start to crank. And you'll see it start to come up on the big guy. And it just takes a while because you got to do like a lot of passes to fill this up. So I would do that. Then I would come in here and do the same thing. And like you see how these two spots are kind of don't have any yet. So I would put it to that side while it loads up. And then once I have like a good solid layer of this Corriedale in pink down, then I start with my homegrown cracker wool, okay? And I'll put that in there. And then I went ahead and put some black. And this is merino. And it says on here, what is it? 19 micron. Which means something to people that know about wool. All I know is that it's soft. So I mixed it in there. And that's what you see in the finished bat. All those three colors. The white natural from our homegrown wool, the black merino, and then this magenta Corriedale. It is so fun. When I tell you so fun, relaxing. You can put on a show, put on some music. And I just start cranking it like this. And actually, I will say that for this bat, I filled it all the way till, you know, you kind of come in here with, not this one, with the brush. And I push it down in this direction to get everything flat and smooth so I can make like a thicker bat. And I just keep going like this once it gets really, really high and thick and chunky packed in there. And then you basically cut it apart. So in this area here, I would take this tool and go in and just pull up, in and pull up to separate the fiber. And then you just start pulling it off in like one chunk. Like you just take the whole thing and just keep pulling off of it in the opposite direction that it was brushed on, you know, through with the carder. And then that's how you get your big chunk, your big bat. And then you have this fancy little bat that's super puffy and airy. And look at that homegrown wool. I love it. Love, love, love it. And I'm glad that I have a lot of all the three colors because I'm going to make more of this. I want to have several bobbins of this yarn made up because I think I'm going to make myself a hat for this coming winter with all this. And you can see the colors on here. And so look what happens. Once I made the first bat, I refed it in here. So what that's going to do is obviously blend the colors a little bit more so that magenta doesn't strike as poppy as when we look at it here like this, okay? Because it's now getting muted, right? Blended into the white and the black. But I still love the way that that looks. So I wanted to show y'all, you know, what I've been working on with my homegrown wool. And that's that. So I'm going to keep making more of that, spinning up the rest of that bat. And you know what? It was late at night the other night when I was playing with that, and I didn't have the scale out to weigh it. But once I'm done with the yarn, I will run it through my a yarn counter thing that I have to see what thickness I got. Or, I mean, what length I ended up with. Because the thickness that I'm spinning it at is my default. It's like what my hands naturally go to now. And I would say it's probably, the singles itself is pretty thin, but when I do two like this, like two, if I do two strands, oh, it's probably like a DK weight yarn, you know, if I do like a 2-ply. So it's not super duper thin, but it's pretty thin. But I have plenty to make a lot more and make whatever projects I want. Okay. Oh, Susie's asking a good question. She says, why is some of the pink wool on the small drum? So this is called the liquor in, and some of it just doesn't go in there. Like if for whatever reason, like it didn't get pushed in. I've seen in all the classes and all the videos, they always say like, don't take it off of here and try to run it back through. I'm so cheap. I'm just like, why not? Why not? Don't do it. It just ends up getting stuck here again. So I messaged Vicky and asked her, hey, what can I do with all the stuff, you know, with so many passes, the stuff that gets stuck to the liquor in, what do I do? And she said and it's funny because when she said what to do, I was like, okay, that's what I've been doing because I ain't throwing it away. She says she just collects from all the different colored yarns that she runs through her carder and different yarns that she makes. And she will just throw it into a baggie and then use it to spin art yarn. So then you just take a chunk of this, you know, and you put it in as you're spinning bulkier, thicker, funkier yarns and making art yarns. So yeah, I'm just going to be collecting a bunch of this stuff. Some of it was like either too short of the staple length, like it didn't get caught in between enough to get put on there. And I guess technically you could, like if the bits were worth it, you could like put it on here and then like ain't nobody got time for that. If it doesn't go in smoothly and this doesn't, you know, comb it in the same direction, I ain't bothering with it. But I will save it so that we can spin it into some funkier art yarns in the future. Okay? So yeah, great question. Oh, I know. Vagabond D says, you should come to the Sheep and Wool Festival in upstate New York. I wish. That's Rhinebeck. I have never been, and it never works out with my schedule. Maybe one of these years I will go. Maybe next year. This year I can't make it, but maybe next year. Susie says, I have homegrown wool quilt batting. Could that be spun into yarn? I don't see why not. It would just have to be carded to make it, you know, a little bit smoother, at least for me, like a newer spinner. You know, I can't be, I mean, I've seen people like, they barely detangle, like they are barely separating. It's like a matted mess and they're like spinning super fine from it. I'm like, I have to stop. Like I said, peel off a chunk like this. You see how light and airy it is though? And then I'll like separate it just a little. And then I'll start spinning. Why not? Let's do a little spinning demo. And then I'll be done here because I still got to cook these people dinner. Okay. Let me grab this, turn on my battery pack. I usually start off a little bit slower. On this EEW 6.0, I usually set mine to like between the 2 and the 3 setting as far as speed. And then once I get comfortable again, then I'll crank it up to like the 3 is where I'm at currently. Ta-da! It's so quiet. Isn't this fun? And so it's funny because when I first looked at like spinning and looking at the size of bats, I was like, how much yarn are you going to make from that little fluff of nothing, you know? But when you have it in your hand and you see the few little strands that it needs to create a good 6 to 10, 12 inches of yarn, then you think, okay, I'm going to get some solid yardage out of this because it's barely anything. I love to see the little fluffs of the cracker wool go in there. the little neps, especially like the fluffier little bits. But this is another reason, at least Vicky, for processing my wool, she recommended that I have the, that we get the sheep sheared when the fleece is at least 3 inches in length, because that's what she needs a minimum of to, or the staple length, like the fiber length of the fleece, okay? So that she can run it through her machine. Isn't that fun? And I think I had this on my thing. There, a little bit tighter. I had it a little bit loose. And then you just like adjust this. You move these little things, this like feeds onto here so that you kind of just stop every little bit, every once in a while and kind of scoot it down so that it fills back and forth pretty evenly. You get better over time, but Rebel Rose says, is it a feeling to know how thick you want the strand? I mean, now it kind of is, and I'm new. I only learned how to spin last year, right? I think I only started spinning last year. I don't even remember. Yeah, it couldn't have been 2020. It was in 2021. August of 2021 is when I started. And so you get used to like how much to let go in there for how thin you want it, which is so funny because when I began, I was making this super thick, chunky yarn, and I just could not figure out how people are spinning thin yarn. And now we were talking about this, Vicky and I, actually, at that retreat we went to in June. We were struggling to spin thicker yarn. It's like now your hands just automatically go to the thinner. And it's like I can't let more of the fibers go in to make a thicker yarn. Like you have to consciously like focus and try, because we've already trained ourselves to like, hey, spin a little bit thinner. And I mean, and I'm not trying to spin super duper thin either, that's what my default goes to now. What I feel comfortable in my hands. It's so fun. If you don't spin, I mean, I'm just saying, it's like not a bad hobby to get into. And I hear myself talk and I laugh because before I was like, who has time to make the yarn? Just buy a ball of yarn and make something, But I tell people this all the time. I don't even care if I don't use the yarn in an actual project. Just the making of it is the craft for me. It's wild. Okay. Sarah McKay is asking, how do you spin thicker yarn? So basically, instead of letting in this little teensy bit, which I'm looking on the camera and you can barely see it, you would let go a bigger chunk, like thicker, more fibers, and it twists them together and it would make a thicker yarn. I'll have to practice that one day. But since I'm actually trying to do something with this one, I don't want to mess it up. And you think, okay, you're spinning thinner. You can do thick and thin. There's all kinds of different combinations that you can do depending on what the look of the finished yarn is going to be. But again, since this is just a singles yarn, which means it's a single strand of twisted yarn of wool, I'm going to ply it to either itself or another bobbin, but of the same colorway, I think, to make a 2-strand yarn. And of course, the more strands the yarn has, the stronger it's going to be, okay? Audrey's asking if I still use my wooden spinning wheel. I do. Not as often, but I do, because it's in the living room. You got to kind of be sitting on the couch, and we haven't done that yet. But when it gets cooler here, we do. We'll have more movie nights and stuff like that, and we'll be sitting on the couch, so I'll use it then. Yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Thank you for those of you that have signed up for the Constanza Knit-Along. We are going to have a blast learning how to make my shawl. Super fun. It is beginner-friendly. Remember, you have a calendar there that you can print out. We have the downloadable pattern, the PDF instructions. For those of you that are joining, if you already know how to knit, I mean, you get the PDF pattern right there when you log in. So I bet you somebody is like tomorrow going to post a picture and say that they've already started it because you don't have to wait for the videos, The videos are more so like if you're a beginner or you need someone to kind of guide you and walk you through a little bit more the steps of the project. But then you have the calendar. We're going to release the video courses in 2 batches, and we have 2 live shows that go along with the knit along. Okay, so the sign up link is in the description box below or in the chat if you're watching on Facebook, and then of course in the description box here on YouTube. Okay, so it doesn't match, but it's so pretty. And that's going to be it. That's going to be it for now. So I will see y'all next month because we do Fiber Fridays on the first Friday of each month. And if you sign up for the knit along, I will see you in class. All right. Good night, everybody. Enjoy the rest of, enjoy your weekend, your long weekend here. We have Labor Day on Monday, so no school, right? I hope y'all enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you in the next live or the next video. Bye.